Sultan Al-Qasimi in his first ever competitive event in this car, so anything could happen. And again, I'm starting to think as we go along here and the conditions start to change, the unpredictability of this event has only started in the top 32, and now we're starting to see in the top 16 some interesting draws. And it's a real game of chess out there at the moment. Who's going to overcommit? Who's going to get it right? And it will be Sultan Al-Qasimi to lead in Paul McCarthy. McCarthy not letting him get away here at the moment.
No, and Sultan needs a rub of the green here to try and reclaw some of the disadvantage from the first run. Safely through the first corner. You can just see both drivers, Dave, very tentative through that first corner with the little bit of drops of rain. But Sultan on a poor line now, not able to get to the wider line of the circuit. Brings it down onto the wall. McCarthy just keeping his distance here. He knows that he has this in the bag with a clean pass to the circuit, and that is exactly what he's done. Sensible driving there from the giant killer, Paul McCarthy.
Yeah, didn't have much to chase there on the lead run. Sultan Al-Qasimi having a pretty poor line through the first two corners. That bit of drizzle or rain that's just dropped on the track. I mean, Sultan from the Middle East wouldn't be a hugely expert driver in the wet, and that might have just cost him a little bit of understeer through the first couple of sections. So let's see which way the judges go. Sultan Al-Qasimi, slide him left, slide him right for Paul McCarthy. And who's going to get the win? It's going to be Paul McCarthy going to the top 8. Paul McCarthy's on his way to the top 8. And we are going to, pretty obvious one there, Sultan on a pretty poor line and having some issues and having a spin, and Paul McCarthy will keep his championship hopes alive. And we're going to go down and have a little chat with a very interesting battle coming up between two young guns, Shay Rogers and Connor Shanahan. Nathan's with them now.
That's right, Commish. I am down here with the chaps. We're going to have a very quick chat first. Connor, amazing stuff there through the qualifying, through your first battle into the top 16. How are you feeling, first of all, where you are currently? How's the car doing? It looks like there's some changes underway. What's going on?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're running into problem after problem. It's definitely not the best I'm driving out there. We're driving over problems all the time. I'm not really happy with the car at the moment. We're changing things every run, seeing can we make it better. Every time we're learning the car, the way it's driving, it's doing something different every time as well. So it's quite hard to do consistent runs out there. But yeah, look, I'm having fun. I think the rain is going to come down, so hopefully my experience will show in the next couple of battles.
Now you're in here, you've got two neighbours, and they could be perceived sometimes as friends, but right now maybe neighbours from hell. One's your brother, winner of round 2, who you could hypothetically meet in the final. The other two, your left and my left, is Shay Rogers, who I just heard you jesting there, said the words, you've got a challenge ahead of you. You laughed, but why did you say that? Is that true? Is this, what's going to happen here? We're excited to see this. What words have you got for Shay? What's going to happen?
Yeah, of course, Shay's driving well. I think if the rain comes down, we'll teach him a few things, but in a way, we're going to push hard, and we're going to have fun out there, and that's the main thing. Put on a good show for the fans and make it a good battle.
Thank you very much, Connor. Now Shay, he says he's got a challenge ahead of him. You've had your own challenges at round 1 and 2 with car problems. How do you feel about Connor's words there? How do you feel about doing battle against him very shortly in the top 16?
I've been waiting for this battle all year. I've been telling him, I've been telling everybody, and I am absolutely buzzing to get out and get him. The rain's coming down, and he's going to have to set the pace, and he knows how difficult that is. So I'm in the advantage, in my opinion.
Now there's a little bit of electricity in the air between these two. They both got awkward smiles on their faces. I can taste the confidence in both of them. Chaps, the best of luck to you. Back to you guys. We can't wait for this battle.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting one to look forward to later on in the top 16. We're going to move on to our next battle. As you can see, the rain just starting to drop now and hitting the front of the grandstand. And you guys around the edge of the circuit. Harry Kerr goes up against Paul Conlon. 15 years of age against 42 years of age. Only the sport could throw up, this kind of experience versus a young gun like Harry Kerr. But just that little trickle of rain coming down the track, I think is going to fall very much into Harry Kerr's court here, as he has much less horsepower.
Yeah, we've seen this a number of times in the past, Dave, and the first driver going into that first corner can be at a serious disadvantage when the rain has started to fall, because conditions are so greasy now. It's not fully wet just yet, and these drivers have had absolutely no wet practice whatsoever. But Paul Conlon has already overcome one young gun in Jordan Boyce this weekend in the top 32. Now he has a second hopeful to try and overcome Harry Kerr. He's on bonus time in the top 16, coming up against one of the veterans. He will be loving this opportunity, and as the higher qualifier, Harry Kerr will be feeling the advantage. But we just listened to Shay Rogers say to Connor Shanahan that Shanahan has to set the pace. Well, Harry Kerr has to do it here against one of the longest reigning drivers in the championship.
Well, this is going to be a very interesting battle indeed, one I'm looking forward to. You got that young gun coming through, big point to prove, goes up against probably the most experienced driver on the grid. And what a way to set us up here for one of these drivers going through to the top 8. Thumbs up from the start line, Marshall. We're ready to go. And what is that first corner going to be like? I think it's going to be very greasy, and Harry Kerr is going to have to adapt to that very, very, very quickly here as he comes through the gears.
I'd be surprised, Dave, if we don't see a spin here. This is going to be really, really treacherous for, big angle from Harry Kerr, and he's gone straight away. But so is Paul Conlon behind him.
Yeah, both drivers gone and be the first to spin. I think that would be deemed as Harry Kerr's issue there. We've watched this for years and years on this layout, that a minute a little bit of rain, if it's fully wet, it's fine. But when a little bit of rain or a little drop of rain comes down that first corner, all the rubber that's been laid down there just becomes like glass. And these guys will see a couple of spins. And they haven't done any wet laps whatsoever this weekend, right from the start of Saturday. So it's going to be a test of experience. And you can hear Conor Shanahan saying in his interview that, you know, he's got the experience in the rain here, and I think it's going to count for quite a bit. But look, Conlon's still making smoke out on circuits, so I think it's very patchy out there. It's going to be very difficult to know what to do in the second run. That's why Harry Kerr just taking that little bit of time to test the grip levels before they head back up to the line. Yeah,
and just looking at the cloud formation overhead, Dave, I actually think we're getting, you know, just maybe the tail end of some of the storm here that's passing through. So I think we could have certain parts of the track that are going to be that little bit wetter than others, but that may change over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes if we get a full downpour. So keep your eyes on that one. And one man who will be watching this, in fact, two men that will be watching this with happy eyes, will be Sean Watt and Paul McCarthy in their trusty BMWs. They'll be thinking that advantage is in their court.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, Conlon now in the lead position, he can't afford a spin on the entry to this corner, and that's where he's got to use his experience here and say, look, you can't come in a big angle to that corner with the conditions the way they are. He'll have watched he's already sort of half spun to avoid Harry Kerr. He's got to use experience here. Kerr, you can see him testing out the grip levels when he was heading back up to the line there, so they'll definitely know a little bit more on the second run, but it might be too late for Harry Kerr, and he's got to go aggressive here from the off. And Paul Conlon, he's almost made contact on the way in, and can Conlon hold it through the first corner?
Oh, big understeer from Conlon as
Conlon's having issues, and they're coming together very quickly, but Conlon sort of holds it together somehow.
Yeah, as does Harry Kerr in the chase position. Very interesting as well. Conlon does not appear to have any windscreen wiper on that S15, so it looks as though he's managing to negotiate his way around the circuit, and maybe a little bit lucky that there's not more rain out there. Harry Kerr, though, starts to bring the fight now through the closing sections, and this one, I think, will go back to the mistakes through the first corners, Dave.
Yeah, you know, Paul Conlon having a great season so far, and even though he made a big error there on understeer through the first corner, he did get back on angle. He didn't spin or go off the track, and he did upset Harry Kerr. There's no denying Harry Kerr will have a huge advantage on the second one. It's just whether or not it's enough to overturn that 10-0 on the first one.
Yeah, so will it be Paul Conlon moving on, or will it be a one more time? Kieran, Kevin and Dan all in favour of Paul Conlon moving on to the Grade 8. Harry Kerr's reign ends there. No need to go back to the judges. Pretty clear cut.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was just going to. I mean, if they had given a 10-0 on the first to Harry Kerr, then there you go. That's the end of it. And Paul Conlon, while he probably had a 9-1 or an 8-2 against him on the second, he didn't spin out. He didn't cause a 0. So, not driving the best, but handling the conditions better than Harry Kerr did, and the experience counting for a lot there for Paul Conlon. He moves on to the top 8. Great results for Paul Conlon this year. He seems to be finding his form. Chris Burnett and Lee Scott are our next two drivers. Lee Scott going very much looking across to the other side of the bracket, and, you know, watching his Paul McCarthy. He's watching Jack Shannon. He's got to dispatch Chris Burnett here to stay in the fight.
Well, I think it's a nervous moment for him now, because he's going to be looking at this as Shanahan and McCarthy are already through. They're already settled into that Grade 8 with dry circuits when they went out. He now has to come out onto a wet circuit, and he won't be too sure. So the added pressure, he's coming up against Chris Burnett, who was driving well this weekend as well. So this is a tough battle for the championship hopeful.
I actually think the problem here is it's not a fully wet track, because I'm looking out there and I think it's wetter in some areas, and it's only a drizzle, so it's almost just making it greasy, which means you know, if it was fully wet, you'd come in slow, you'd take it handy, you know, that's the way it works. But I think there's still grip out there, and they don't want to sacrifice being too tentative and then gripping up and straightening up. So this is probably the toughest conditions these guys have had all year to date, and this is going to be a real test of resolve for both Elise Scott and Chris Burnett now as they come into that first corner. Can they hold it together? First sort of greasy laps of the weekend, how do they handle it?
Well, who handles it better is the question. Oh, and you can just see how difficult it is. Chris Burnett just has a little waver behind Lee Scott, but Lee Scott not looking overly settled himself now. Can they clean it up for the second half of this one as they take it wide and door on door? But oh, Chris Burnett has to back out of it as he goes too aggressive. But Lee Scott just doesn't look settled at all in front of him. And is it a case that it's a broken some mechanicals.
Yeah, I'm not too sure
For
exactly
Lee Scott, is there something broken at the rear end of that car, Dave?
I'm not too sure what happened there. Now, Lee Scott does finish the run. This is really interesting stuff. Watch Lee Scott as he initiates here. He actually initiates pretty good. Burnett has a massive problem. He slows down. Then the grip comes in, so he straightens. Watch Lee Scott's front wheels here. He has a massive understeer moment, but he manages to hold it and take it through. But he's actually got a debeated tire. That is the issue with Lee Scott straight away. He debeated the tire, and he's taking a 5-minute rule. So he's on one tire here at the moment, as you can see. Yeah, one tire, and that's the side just going to the wall there. He has a wobble there at the wall. Dangerous driving. Does that slow him enough that Chris Burnett is affected by that throughout the run? That's what the judges will be looking at. Was he very slow around the course? Did he debeat on entry and therefore couldn't get back on the throttle the same way he wanted to? And Chris Burnett in the chase position couldn't do a whole lot about it, or did he get cleanly around the course with just one tire? So there is Lee Scott, and he takes a 5-minute rule, which will lose him a championship point, which might count for a lot towards the end of this season. And he's got to go back in because he cannot start another run on a DB. Now here's an interesting, Alan Hines, Tomas Falvey, they'll be starting to line up on the start line. Two guys running very well this weekend, but I think that greasy track that's out there is going to throw a lot of spanners in the mix now. And you can see even Lee Scott having issues there. They must have dropped the tire pressure. I think they dropped the tire pressures
to try and get some extra grip into the rear end.
I think what they did was they dropped the tire pressures because they thought it was wet. And then when it gripped up immediately on initiation, it just pulled the tire off the rim because it's not wet. So that's the problem. You're going out there thinking it's wet, but I'm looking at a track there that, to me, I can still see is quite dry.
Yeah, and if you look at how fast Alan Hines has his wipers on, it could give an indication that the rain is heavier down at the start line than it is up here through the main section of the circuit. So differing conditions could be causing a problem for these guys, maybe not able to read it properly just yet.
You know, not a bad shout, Eddie, because I'm looking down that straight. It does look a lot wetter down there than it is here. And I know it's not a major distance, probably half a kilometre, but there is this place has been known to throw up some interesting weather in different parts of the circuit, and it is quite open.
And this is why you'll hear the drivers say they prefer a bone dry or fully wet circuit. This, you know, in the middle area is not where they want to be. Here comes Alan Hines, throwing some angle at it, but just keeping it reserved. Tomas Falvey manages to keep it going as well, despite dialing on big angle. Now looks to find some proximity as he throws it onto the door. And these two guys managing the conditions quite well here so far, Dave.
Absolutely, and you can see Tomas Falvey's car still making smoke, Alan Hines' car not making smoke. So they're trying different setups here to try and keep themselves in the mix. But Alan Hines got a little bit more grip, seems to have got him a bit more pace, and he takes a great advantage there in the lead position, handles the conditions well. Falvey throwing in that big angle again on entry, actually slowed him a little bit there, where it was an advantage in the dry and the greasy conditions. It actually slowed him a little bit. So I think advantage maybe with Hines after the first half of this one.
Well, I think what you have there is a very sensible approach from Hines through that first section, keeping Falvey in a sensible position himself. And I'd say he would have had Spotter on the radio, you know, reminding him just to be tentative through that first corner. Very clever approach from both those guys, and they've managed to get around the circuit, leaving this one into the second half of the battle. And you know what? Hines does a really good job here. But Falvey, I'm very impressed with his approach here. Not getting caught out, not getting overzealous, and trying to do too much in the chase position.
Yeah, but again, that big angle entry that he's pulling, I'm just thinking when Hines is chasing him here, and I think Hines will go close. That's the way he likes to drive. I think that could throw Alan Hines here on the first corner. Falvey's coming in very wild, and Alan Hines got to weigh up what his approach here is in the chase position. Championship at stake here as he goes right to the back bumper of Tomas Falvey's car. Falvey again, big
huge angle from Falvey. Can he hold it? Surprisingly, Dave, he does. How on earth does Tomas Falvey hold that angle through the first corner? But now does on huge angle as he goes into Link ECU, slowing the car down, giving Alan Hines an opportunity to claw back some ground here as they transition bumper to bumper. Big dive into the pocket and onto the door from Alan Hines as he comes hunting for Falvey. These two gladiators taking it across the line. Mondello Park raised the roof for Falvey and Hines. That is talent.
Yeah, I don't know how Tomas Falvey held that one. I thought he was going to end up backwards in the barrier, and all of a sudden he comes through clipping zone 3. Completely sacrificed clipping zone 2, but incredible stuff from Falvey, and showing he's actually become one of the most exciting drivers on the grid this weekend. He's just all of a sudden become a real spectacle to watch. I'm not sure if it's enough on that occasion. Very calculated runs from Alan Hines there, and Falvey's sort of holding on a little bit at times, but great effort all the same. Let's see which way the judges call it. So I'm left for Tomas Falvey, right for Alan Hines. And there you have it. Alan Hines is going to the top 8. Alan Hines goes through to the top 8, keeping his championship hopes alive and staying in the lead of the championship, more importantly at this stage. Falvey going out there at big angle would have been seen as a bit of an error, and the calculated runs from Hines got him through. Interesting stuff.
So Hines moves on to the grade 8.
I'm just thinking, Eddie, do you think they would want it to rain more now? I think they probably would. It's very strange out there at the moment. It's kind of greasy, and that's about it. Caldwell now goes up against Fury. Of all the drivers out there at the moment, Caldwell is looking super comfortable. But Fury, once that car is working, is absolute. And he's an animal, but he also has a very fast car. So I don't think Caldwell's going to have this easy.
No, but Caldwell and his team were definitely expecting rain earlier on, and they got this car set up for the rain. So I think, you know what, they're going to be ready for this.
It's coming down a little bit heavier now down here on the main circuit than it was before. So I think that's just slowly moving up here, and we could see a greasier surface now than we have earlier on. It's definitely coming down heavy now. So I think we are going to have a fully wet track by the time these guys come over the hill.
But again, you got to remember, neither of these drivers have had any wet practice whatsoever. So these conditions will be strange to them as they come down that pit straight, or that main straight. Ryan Caldwell will be leading in Terence Fury, and you know what, even if both of them spin, the lead driver at that disadvantage at this moment, but it's really starting to come down now. We are going to have a fully wet circuit by the time they get to clip 1, 2 and 3. Here we go. Wipers on full tilt. Full tilt on entry from Ryan Caldwell. Terence Fury tucks in right beside him, side by side, and no problems for either driver as they take it nice and wide out to clip 3. This is what we want. Oh, inches from making contact, and Fury just has to resettle himself as he now looks for the door of the AS15 once again. Fury, we have been promised in the past by numerous people about the talent of this young man, and he's just showing it here on one of the biggest stages as he comes up against Caldwell. Doesn't give Caldwell an inch to breathe, Dave.
What a chase run from Terence Fury. And you know what? You expect first battle in the rain, everyone's going to spin and be all over the place. One of the best battles of the day. Fury doesn't back down. They both get through the first corner, and the transition from Fury, while it was exceptional in its proximity, he does make an error immediately after it. Watch the transition from Fury here. He just throws the car at the back end of Caldwell's car. As they transition, big dive in, but he just backs off the throttle a little bit, and that caused an error. But still, even with that error, has the proximity throughout the whole course, doesn't make very many errors. This might be a big tough task for Ryan Caldwell now to get back into the fight.
Yeah, that error, but I think the judges will reward the aggression and the fact that he managed to avoid making contact and having an impact with Caldwell. But Caldwell definitely has a lot to answer here now after that first run and that very impressive chase from Terence Fury. So they make their way back to the start line. Fury to lead them in on the second half of this one. And you know what, if there was any questions about whether or not the circuit is wet 5 minutes ago, those questions have been completely answered. It is absolutely soaking out there on circuit right now. And you know what, looking at the clouds ahead, Dave, I think it's down for the day. We will be finishing on a wet circuit, I would imagine.
Yeah, getting very heavy out there now, and spare thought for our fans in attendance here, braving the conditions. We feel your pain out there. It's not nice at the moment, and obviously our cameramen up in those towers as well. Not a nice place to be. A lot of rain coming down, and our start line marshal and track marshals as well standing out in that. Real heroes at the moment, and we'll have to get them a cup of soup now at the end of the day. It's going to be a wet one. We thought we might avoid it, but here it is. It is what it is. It's Irish drifting, and it's definitely going to rain at some point, so we got to go through it. Fury in the lead, Caldwell in the chase. It's coming down, buckets and spades. Can they stay together?
Well, the question is, what can they see as they come down the straight as those cars start to steam up on the inside? But look at the pace from Terence Fury out of nowhere, and Caldwell hasn't got an answer for him. Could one of our championship hopefuls be about to bow out of competition, or can he find something special? Oh, but Fury spins!
How does he spin? How does it happen? He just pulled a monstrous gap. He has the advantage. He's under no pressure, and it just caught a greasy patch there, and it just sent the car around. So unfortunate. Well, I think Caldwell, you know what? Someone's been lighting candles for Caldwell over the weekend.
At the end of the championship season, Dave, we will be able to look back at this round and say this particular battle was huge in terms of Ryan Caldwell's charge.
Absolutely, and I think from my perspective, it might be a decider here and staying in the fight. Let's see which way the judges go. Very wet track in front of the drivers now for the rest of this competition. Drivers, congratulations. All right, guys, round of applause. Tough conditions out there for Fury and Caldwell. So there you have it. Announced from the marshals. And it's going to be Ryan Caldwell getting the win and going through. Ryan Caldwell getting the win and going through to the top 8. Championship still very much alive. Tough conditions out there on the track for the marshals, the media, and you guys in attendance on the banks. It's getting a bit wet out there. We'll still keep the track rolling though and move along to our next battle.
We're actually going to go back to the second run of the Lee Scott-Chris Burnett battle. And you know what, Dave? This one becomes even more important now. Shanahan, McCarthy, Hines, and Caldwell all into the Grade 8. Lee Scott needs to keep this championship alive by winning this battle. We saw him beat the tire on the first run. He needs to find something special now against Burnett, but Burnett wasn't without his own problems on the first half of that one either. So this one's certainly hanging in the balance and up for grabs. And with those treacherous conditions out on circuit, you know what, there'd be no issue with dropping the pressure of the tires this time around and catching grip. So as we close up the shutters here.
Yeah, just taking a moment to readjust for the weather conditions at the moment.
We've got a lot of electrical equipment in the tower that we need to just protect before we can move on and keep our judges dry, of course, so that they can keep their concentration on what's going on. It's been a difficult day for them, a lot of tough decisions out there today, and a lot of very tough driving conditions now for our grid to contend with, but they are more than up to the challenge. We've been quite lucky so far this season. A lot of our events have been run in dry conditions, so we were due a wet one, and unfortunately today was the day.
Yeah, well, we've had a pretty good run of luck of dry events this year in Ireland, and it wasn't going to hold. Not here, not in Ireland. And the rain now lashing down on the start line. So here we go. It looks like the cars are already on the start line. Judges have just readjusted to get away from being electrocuted, Eddie, because we don't see that happening. A lot of electrical equipment. And of course, we always have headsets on our heads which are connected to something that's electrical. And we get a little worried when all the water starts to run in through the roof. So let's get back to the start line. Looks like we are ready to go. Chris Burnett, Lee Scott, second half of this one, Eddie. Looks like Lee Scott had that DB, but may still carry an advantage. It's all down to the second run, and a very different second run. In that 10 minutes, it's a different track.
Yeah, completely different track. And with that point disadvantage for the 5-minute rule, Lee Scott will be looking to take this in because he needs every point that he can get at this point. As Burnett now tries to contend with the conditions, you can just see how difficult it is to even see the markings on the track, but they have those cones as a guidance. And oh, big straighten. Was there contact on transition, or was it just an error from Chris Burnett? As you can see these drivers just battling to try and get comfortable out on the circuit. Lee Scott bringing the fight through in the final sections. The judges will discuss the two runs and make their decision as to who is going through to the Grade 8. Certainly not clear cut with mistakes on the first run, and with that D-beat, was Lee Scott at a major disadvantage going into the second half of that one, but certainly some mistakes from Chris Burnett in the second half as well. So judges passing the results through. Here comes the result onto the screens. Who's it going to be? Will it be Lee Scott? Will it be Chris Burnett? Slide him left for Burnett, right for Scott. Kieran, Kevin, and Dan. Kieran Hines says Chris Burnett. Kevin and Dan follow suit. Chris Burnett is going through to the top 8, where he will face Alan Hines.
Wow, well, that's big for the championship. Lee Scott eliminated in the top 16. And the weather, whenever it comes down, and it comes down a few times a year here in Ireland, whenever it comes down, it shakes up that championship. It's not the most fun to watch. It's not the most fun to spectate. It's not the most fun for the drivers, for sure, but it does make it unpredictable. And now drivers that you might have been looking at as too strong can be very, very good in the wet. And that's where it's going to shake things up. And all the speed advantage of other drivers will not matter. And these two guys were talking enough smack earlier on about the rain. They predicted it was going to be wet when they got out there. And Conor Shannon and Shea Rogers. Well, Shea Rogers will absolutely want to win this one at 100%.
Absolutely, but Conor Shannon has the pressure on his shoulders now to answer all that smack talk, because he said, you know what, I've got the experience. Well, you got to back those words up. You can walk the walk, if you talk the talk, you're going to have to walk the walk. And you can see Shea Rogers just doing his best to get all sorts of heat into those tires and get as much grip as possible. These conditions, as we say, Shanahan definitely the most
Connor Shanahan, you heard him on the interview. He said, "I've got the more experience in the rain. You wouldn't want to embarrass yourself by spinning out now." He's put a big confidence statement in there. And Shea Rogers, well, he's come in as the underdog to a certain extent in this battle. But once that car is working and that Super hooks up, it does drive very well in the rain. We've watched him a couple of times in the amateurs in that car. It goes very, very well in the rain. Different game now. Anything can happen.
So Shanahan sits on the line, and interesting family ties here as well, as Shanahan going out with Shea Rogers' sister. So
yeah, well, we didn't want to mention it, but that is even making it more interesting at the moment. These are good friends behind the scenes, but when it gets to battle action, they're going to have to be enemies for the next couple of minutes, and Shanahan will lead in Shea Rogers as they come up over the hill. You can see just how heavy the rain is falling. Shanahan with a big flick entry, testing the grip, and Shea Rogers on big angle in the chase, but they both get through that first corner. Here we go. Shea Rogers, though, maybe on a little bit too much angle there.
Yeah, starting to lose a little bit of ground, and that Supra looking a bit more like a boat. And Shanahan proving that he has that experience and backing up those words. Here he comes. Can he get it safely down onto the wall? But Rogers, you know what, Dave, staying in the fight here, keeping that proximity, not doing a whole lot wrong. And look at this, door to door as they cross the line. Not bad from Shea Rogers. He's letting Shanahan know, I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely, and what he's done now is also say that as the rain, absolutely torrential rain now in Mondello Park comes down, what he said to Shanahan is, I'm still here for the whole run and I'm not going anywhere. You've got to do more than that, and I don't know how much you can risk here in these kind of conditions. Both of these cars are getting absolutely hammered by the rain now as it heavies that little bit more now. It's a, it's a proper spill now, and the track's going to get flooded in certain areas. There's going to be standing water out there. Very difficult conditions.
Yeah, this is going to prove a real test for the drivers, and the advantage turns back to the guys that have driven in these conditions before on this particular layout. They'll know where the grip is. They have the experience. They've laid down those laps, and they can, turn to that experience to give themselves that competitive advantage.
Yeah, but as it does get more miserable, and that is what happens when the rain comes down. The only thing I can say is it gets more unpredictable. It becomes very, very interesting to watch because, this kind of, you go through the motions and certain people win certain battles, especially in the dry because they've got the speed or the experience or the grip or whatever. Any error now and we can see a big name going home.
Well, at any point somebody could spin out. There's no safe point on the track, and especially with all the transitions that these guys have to make, it just becomes a different kettle of fish. And of course they haven't had that practice time, so they haven't got a chance just to really get that setup dialed in. They've been preparing for dry weather all weekend. But we got the second half of this one. Shanahan with that strong lead run. Rogers with that strong chase, despite maybe a few errors and losing some ground here and there. But he'll be feeling confident in this one. He's not scared of Connor Shanahan one bit.
We can see our Starlight Marshal reporting back that the drivers are ready to go. Window wipers absolutely furiously running across the windscreens now as they come off the line. Shanahan has to be aggressive here. Rogers can't afford any mistakes. This is a nervy moment for both of these drivers, and a lot of horsepower and machinery coming up over there. Look at the standing water on the track there.
Yeah, Rogers throwing big angle out of the Shanahan, just holds back and watches on, and now starts to make the attack. But Rogers, I think, dialing in too much angle and slowing up, but giving Shanahan that opportunity to get nice and close. Very controlled in the chase position here now as they perform a little bit of a dance on ice here. And Shanahan, again, just doing a good job of matching what the lead driver is doing. Rogers coming away from that wide line just ever so slightly as they came towards that first wall section, and then backs it back in nicely and across the line. Yeah,
I think Shanahan may have done enough there. Very good aggressive driving. Rogers looking very good, though, in the wet and the dry this weekend. He'll take away a lot of confidence from this, and these guys having a thumbs up to each other as they come towards. You can see the standing water now on the track is going to start to play into this as it goes along. We wait for the judge's decision to drop in. Is it as obvious as we thought? You can see Shanahan wiping away all of the condensation from his window. Left for Rogers, right for Shanahan, who's going to the top 8. It's Connor Shanahan. Connor Shanahan goes through to the top 8. He is going through in conditions like this, well, it's a real test of nerve and resolve, and that young man has plenty for his age. But Shea Rogers can take a big positive from this weekend. And it looks like before we head on, we're going to have a quick word with a man who is a specialist in the rain, who has won more events in the rain than anyone else here, I think, and that is Paul McCarthy. He's with Nathan.
Thanks, guys. Yes, I'm down here on the start line. We're going to try and catch a very quick and wet word with the giant killer, Paul McCarthy. Paul, is anybody in? Paul, thanks for giving us a second. We're down here on a rather soggy start line. How are you feeling? You're going up against Paul Conlon. What's at stake here and how you feeling? Do you feel like you've got to right or wrong for making it all the way to the final at round 2? How are you feeling about it all?
Quite mixed at the minute. This rain has after thrown a bit of a spanner in the works. I haven't had a wet lap all weekend, so I'm going to be leading the first run, so it's going to be very hard to judge what the initiation is going to be like. So it's kind of in the hands of God at this stage.
Is there anything in particular you have to change up? You said you've not done a practice lap in the wet. What changes in such a short amount of time? 10 minutes ago it's dry, it's now dripping wet through. What quick hand changes do you have to make?
I mean, the only thing you can do really is just try and grip up your rear end as much as possible. There's nothing really more other than just drop the tyres a couple of PSI and just hope that the car is gripping up well in the wet. But as I said, I haven't even had much wet laps in this car since I've turboed it and stuff, so I'm a bit unsure of how it's going to go, to be honest.
Well, look, it looks like you're up next, so we'll leave you with it, but they call you the giant killer for a reason, and that's because you take them all down. Paul, the best of luck to you, and we'll catch you later on. That's Paul McCarthy, we're back to you guys.
Well, Nathan's up there. I mean, he's getting that hair gel all in his eyes. I'm not too sure he'll know what drivers are here for the rest of the day, but the other side of it is Jack Shanahan now. His brother's gone through. He goes up against Sean Watt, and on another day, I'm thinking Shanahan looks unstoppable, but we've always watched these M3s in the rain here in Mondello start to come alive, and could the tides be turning in Sean Watt's favour?
Well, I think what's against Sean Watt here is that Jack Shanahan has a lot of experience in these conditions, and his brother has just been out, and you can guarantee they'll have been on the radio to each other. He'll know exactly what to expect when he comes down here, and we have not seen a lap of the circuit from Sean Watt where he has looked comfortable in this car today, and I'm wondering, is there a bigger problem that we haven't been told about? But, as you say, Dave, the horsepower figures get a little bit more equalized in these wet weather conditions. Here comes Shanahan. What can Sean do behind him? We are about to find out. Down the stretch, they come for their first lap in the rain. Shanahan on that big angle, looking very fast and opening up the gap nice and early. Sean Watt just has no answer just yet, but can he find something special here to try and force an error from Shanahan in the lead position? Shanahan, it might as well be dry out there because he's looking inch perfect as he makes that nice transition. Hugs the white line, brings it nicely down onto the wall. A little bit of a straighten there from Sean Watt now in the chase position as he struggles just to try and claw his way back into this one, but could not find an answer for Jack Shanahan, who, you know what, just looked almost perfect.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, you talk about experience of driving. What you've also now to start looking at is the experience of the setup of the car. And very few people in Irish drifting have that kind of skill like the Shanahans do. They'll have dropped that back suspension down to its softest settings. They'll have put those tyres on about 12, 13 PSI on the back of the car. They'll know that the car has the horsepower to run that. He can grip the car up in the wet to an excessive amount. I don't think Sean Watt may have that adjustability in what he's running. I know that Jack Shanahan has definitely found pace here in the rain, and that could be a big factor as time goes on. And, you know, Sean Watt, while not doing a huge amount wrong in the chase position, just couldn't find any proximity, couldn't find anywhere on the track. And remember, you can't make those big dives on this track when it's wet because you're just going to spin off. So it's a much more risky game on the initiation than it is, you know. You can even hold back a little bit on the initiation normally, and you can dive through that transition, but in the wet, you know that's just going to send you into the gravel. So it takes away that option, and it means you got to be right on the back bumper of whatever car you're with into that first corner. It gets risky there, and it's also, I'll tell you one thing, that corner looks nothing like it does when you're driving it. You can only see the top couple of rows of the grandstand. You can see absolutely none of the corners, so it's quite daunting, and it's daunting in the wet especially. Let's see how these guys handle the second run.
Yes, well handled they appear to be, as Shanahan makes a nice early initiation and just tucks up behind Sean Watt. Watt doing a decent job here though, keeping that car on momentum and on angle. Fires it into Link ECU corner, and here comes Jack Shanahan in that GT86. He looks so comfortable, wet or dry in this chassis, just completely unfazed, and this would be a huge opportunity for Shanahan to take himself into the final four as they make contact across the line, and Shanahan just applying that pressure. Really nice job from Sean Watt, but I don't think it's enough over the two runs.
No, and Shanahan knows that if you're very close coming across that finish line, it's the last thing the judges remember from that run. It always gives you a little bit more of an exclamation mark, and I think he didn't need it, but very, very confident driving from Jack Shanahan there in very treacherous conditions. And it goes to show these guys have been all over the world and all over, you know, all over Europe competing, and the different conditions have paid dividends there. And Sean Watt, we would have expected, you know, to have a little bit more pace there, but I think there is mechanical gremlins with that car, and it may spell the end of his weekend. Let's see which way it goes. Shanahan or Watt, who's going through to the top 8, And there you have it, obvious as it seems. Jack Shanahan gets the win and goes through to the top 8. And just a quick one back to the judges. Kevin, just very quickly, it's obviously completely different conditions now, but you guys do judge this exactly the same, right?
Yeah, you said it there, Dave. We do judge this exactly the same criteria. We're still looking for the lead driver to maintain that qualifying line the whole way throughout. We're still looking for the chase driver to be maintaining consistency and mirroring that lead driver's angle and qualifying line. But when these conditions get very tricky, most of the time what ends up happening is we have to then judge on mistakes. Which driver makes the more mistakes, what corrections have been made, and that's more or less all what it comes down to all the time. It's far from ideal conditions, but you got to judge what you have to judge.
So there you have it from the judges. But Jack Shanahan moves on to the final 4. 3 more spots await, and Paul McCarthy will now take on Paul Conlon. One of the Pauls going to be moving in to that final 4. And as Paul McCarthy alluded to, this car no longer NA, so he hasn't never driven the car with that turbocharger on it in the wet. So this is a little bit of a minefield for him. And Paul Conlon sitting inside the top 10. He'll be looking at this as a real opportunity, Dave, to get some valuable points. We called it moving day, and this is exactly what Paul Conlon is doing.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys are very much in that championship mix, and this championship battle will mean quite a bit. And Paul McCarthy and Paul Conlon will be thinking about, you know, anything can happen, or don't mess it up on the first corner, but then you got to be aggressive, as we said, if someone's got the pace. So it's very interesting to watch now, because you can sort of tell what these guys are going to do when it's dry. When it's wet, we have no idea. You know, what happens as the rain falls is there's a certain section, I'll get onto it on the replay, that you can see actually a lot of standing water, and it looks like Paul Conlon having trouble getting off the line there.
Yeah, so what approach will Conlon take? Will he go aggressive and try and go straight on the door, or will he hold back and hope for a mistake from McCarthy? Well, McCarthy, a master in these conditions, quite tentative, but gets straight back on the power, and look at this, slides perfectly out to that outer zone. And Conlon is a sitting duck here now as he just tries to gain some ground, washes very wide and just loses pace as he comes by Link ECU corner. And we got a real big gap opening up here, and Conlon in danger of
it'll be an inactive chase here if he doesn't get to the second last clipping zone before McCarthy gets there. And oh, he just about maybe got there. The last, we didn't even see it in the dry, but in the wet it is going to play a factor. The last 2 clipping zones, that's the one on the second wall and the finish line. If the chase car hasn't gone to that wall and that clipping zone before the lead car has left, that is an inactive chase. It was very close for Conlon there. Yeah, very close to seeing an inactive chase, possibly for the first time in the sport. We take a look back at this replay now as we see Conlon straight from the off losing some ground, and McCarthy doing a good job. Look at it, able to maintain that angle in the car, flicks it back nicely, and just negotiates the circuit quite well, where Conlon just overcooks it a little bit and gets stuck on that outer piece of concrete as he comes by Link ECU. Yeah, sort of went to a dream sequence there for a moment, Eddie, on the cameras. Just watch though as McCarthy comes across the line, a little bit of a pop out of the pop, and a big burst of dirty looking smoke through the bonnet there. Yep. Hopefully no problems with that car. Well, he's been known to go on fire. He's on fire in terms of performance and on fire physically in the pit sometimes with that turbocharged setup. But on that particular occasion, he's going to take a big advantage. He didn't do anything too wrong there, and Paul Conlon just could not find the pace whatsoever. And this can sometimes hamper drivers with larger horsepower cars, is that they have so much wheel speed it just cannot get the grip down to the ground. And you can see Paul McCarthy just does a little turnaround and comes back up to that start line. He's going to have the pace here on Conlon, but Conlon not too bad in terms of his line, just not able to have the pace there. And I think the rain has really upset his momentum today. Let's see if McCarthy can finish the job, or will Conlon pull something out of the bag? Well, I think for McCarthy, he's just got to worry about not making a whole lot of errors and having a reasonably close chase. I think Conlon didn't maintain any sort of proximity and had a couple of errors to add to that. So if you're Paul McCarthy and you think to yourself, okay, I just get around the circuit, no need to go too aggressive, I maintain reasonable proximity, I should be going through to a Final 4 to face Jack Shanahan, championship rival. Here we go though, Conlon leading them in, McCarthy right on that rear bumper of the S15. Oh. As they go sideways, and McCarthy spins behind Conlon, Dave. Well, you can't write this stuff at this point, and it's going to come probably down to whether, you know, what caused that initiation. It looked to me like McCarthy went in very aggressive and got himself sort of caught on the inside of the track and had to go on big angle, and Conlon you know, he may have a smaller advantage, or a small advantage. We might have a. I'm wondering about the inactive chase element on the first run. Is that going to bring it back to one more time, or did Colin just do enough to stay in the fight? McCarthy will be devastated if it goes that way. And, well, I mean, you could see it straight away from the off there that McCarthy just got himself caught, went in very early and very aggressive on Conlon. And he, watch this, he initiates actually, just gets caught on the inside of the track, puts big angle on, and he actually just loses it. A little bit of the curb there is detrimental to a driver. If he hops up on the curb, remember this track is now running reverse, so you're hopping on the curb rather than running it like you would the other direction. So it actually unsettles the back end of the car, and that may have been the issue there for Paul McCarthy. And the rain starts to absolutely torrential rain here as they get towards the latter stages of this competition, and it's a real case of survival more than anything else at the moment for these drivers as they go through that standing water. And Conlon is the only man to finish the run.
Yeah, as you say, Dave, Conlon manages to finish the run, and McCarthy with no such luck. But yeah, we got to think about it from the judges' perspective. What are they discussing on that first run? Was it an inactive chase? I mean, you could be looking at it, maybe it's a 9-1 in favour of Paul McCarthy on the first run, but with that second run, it's a guaranteed 10-0. So
yeah, it's going to be very close, and the rain absolutely bucketing down now. And we see this. We want to have another look at this replay of what happened exactly between Paul Conlon and
sorry, when I say it's a definite 0, I mean, the judges could be associating fault with the other driver. And is Paul Conlon initiating too far over that centre line?
I wouldn't imagine so. But he does go right up onto the curb, Paul Conlon. But at this point, McCarthy is gone, and Paul Conlon does get around the corner. I mean, you can't deny that. He does get around it. It's not perfect, but he does make the move around the corner. McCarthy spins out.
Yeah, I think had McCarthy not been up on that curb, he mightn't have had the same problem. Obviously, grip levels up there would be substantially less than what they would be on the tarmac section.
It's going to be a case that McCarthy thought Conlon was going to spin in front of him, and he just bailed out. I'm not sure. It kind of looks like Conlon does a little weight transfer. It's not over to really the centre of the section track. He is at the initiation point there. It looks to me like McCarthy goes on the curb, and once he goes on the curb, the back end gets very light, and I'm not sure if he was supposed to initiate sort of more towards the left-hand side of the track, had to go way over to the left-hand side of the track, and has that cost him the initiation?
Just see those rear wheels spinning furiously as he tries to gain some grip and, you know, take that car out of the spin, but just unable to do so. At that point, just merely aquaplaning, and there's nothing that the driver could do. No driver input is going to change it.
Once you get a big angle here now, on the conditions the way they are, you are going to spin, and that's the way it works. So So the boys wait in their cars, anxiously trying to keep the front windscreens from fogging up and being able to see their way back to the pit area.
Yeah, but what's important here as well, Dave, is that they don't want to be getting out of the cars to have a discussion with each other and letting any water into the cockpit of the car.
Yeah,
the result is feeding through. Who's it going to be? Or will we have it one more time? Conlon to the left, McCarthy to the right. There will be a Paul in the final 4. Which one's it going to be? Kieran, Kevin and Dan? Kieran Hines, Kevin O'Connell and Dan Moorhead all in favour of Paul Conlon going through to the final 4.
And you can hear the anger from Paul McCarthy straight away there. Absolutely hammers the throttle of the car. Guys, back to you. Difficult one to call there.
Yeah, obviously it comes down to that final battle. Okay, in the briefing we explained the lead car mustn't cross more than half across the track, and you know it is apparent that Paul Conlon did cross more than half across the track. Then the next question is this the reason why Paul McCarthy spun? And we've been deliberating here, and we came to the opinion that no, yes, we were going to penalise Paul Conlon very heavily for crossing more than half across the track as we normally would. But to definitively say that that was the reason why Paul McCarthy spun and that he didn't just spin on his own. It looks like he puts wheels on the concrete and it over-rotates. In our opinion, we don't think Paul Conlon's crossing the track was a factor in Paul McCarthy's spin.
All right, so as it seems, McCarthy spins out, and you can't win a run if you're facing the wrong way. We'll move it along to our next battle, as we're getting close to finding out who the top 4 will be today here in very, very tough conditions. And think of it this way, McCarthy out, which is going to put him back a little bit. Shanahan in to the top 4 on championship. If we're keeping an eye on the championship this year, this is the big one. Alan Hines, Chris Burnett. He cannot afford to lose to Chris Burnett here with Shanahan already in the top 4. That'll make things very interesting going into the last 2 rounds. Alan Hines has got a very on-form Chris Burnett to go up against, though, Eddie, who looked very good in the wet. And to be honest, his car working, he's a very steady driver. Doesn't make make big errors, and Alan Hines has been known to be quite aggressive at times. So that's going to be the game that plays out here over these 2 runs.
Yeah, look, and we talk about the rain and the wet adding this interesting element. And on another day, if it was dry, you would say, okay, Alan Hines, he's on really good form at the moment. He would have the advantage here. But it just becomes such a level playing field. Anything can happen at all. And just a moment's over-aggression can result in a spin. We've seen it a few times now. And here we go. Alan Hines, tentative as he throws on that angle. You can just see very controlled angle as Chris Burnett, a little bit wilder behind him and starts to lose that ground because he dials on too much angle, slows himself down a bit. But here he comes now, bringing the charge onto the rear end of that S14. Oh, and a spin from Chris Burnett. And a lot of drivers, Dave, just find it tricky in the chase position coming off that Link ECU corner. But Alan Hines looking like he was born in a flood, because he is taking to this like a duck to water. Very comfortable out on circuit.
You might need an arc out there today, not a car, to get around that track. You see the standing water as Alan Hines had to negotiate that last corner. It's not going to be pretty as we finish up here today. It is very difficult to actually put a very good run in, but he does a good job here. Initiates well. Burnett, though, looking pretty good. He almost makes contact, but he stays in it. And at this point, you're thinking, he's done the hard bit. The rest of us just kind of keep it tidy. But as he comes back in to Link ECU corner, you can see the back end getting pretty light. He goes back on the power, and all of a sudden, just a little bit too much power, and the car is gone. And that's how treacherous, and it is one of the slippiest parts of the course, Link ECU corner, simply because it's used by so many different motorsports. And I'll tell you why it's slippier for drifters than anyone else. There's an interesting one for you, Eddie, because it's not the racing line.
I was just going to say.
So it is, the racing line on that corner is on the inside. So all the the oil and the muck and everything gets worn away on the inside line. But on the outside line, the only people really using it are people who are either off the track or drifters. So at the same time, that is not, in the dry it's fine, but in the wet you're starting to bring that oil and everything out of the tarmac, and it can be quite slippy there. I know there's very little grip in the wet on the outside line there. Not making excuses for Chris Burnett, but just saying it isn't the easiest corner to get around.
Yeah, I think he may have panicked a little bit as well. I think he started to gain on Alan Hines just a little bit quicker than he had imagined, and he maybe just backed out and just unsettled the car. And very important to keep the car very well balanced in these wet conditions. Now, here we go, Chris Burnett to lead them in on the second half of this one. Can he find something special here to try and overturn Alan Hines? He pulls a bit of a gap himself here as Alan Hines has problems down the straight. As we lose Alan Hines off the camera, we go to that wide shot as Burnett takes a sizable advantage as
this is where the inactive chase is going to come in. If Hines can't get back into this fight, he's going to have to cut a little bit of the track to get there, and he is cutting track to try and stay back in the fight, getting back onto the door again. This is where the standing water is a real issue. Look at Burnett plowing through the water there. Very tough on these machines and all the water that's being consumed as well by the air filters. And there you have it. Across the line, Hines gets himself back in the mix, but a massive gap at the start of that run. Alan Hines would have been pretty worried there. And maybe I think he's just done enough. With the spin from Burnett on the first run, I think Alan Hines, while he's not driving at his absolute best, he is managing the conditions as good as anyone out there. And let's see which way the judges go. So they line up in front of the grandstand. If you're still with us in Mondello Park, give us a round of applause for Chris Burnett and Alan Hines. It's not easy out there for these guys.
I don't think it's easy out there for anybody in attendance here in Mondello Park today, but you know what? We're making it true. Here we go. Burnett or Hines?
It's a tough one.
Kieran, Kevin, and Dan all in favor of Alan Hines, who goes through to the final four. Could we see a Shanahan-Hines final? Well, only time will tell. And we got one more grade 8 battle to be decided before then.
And this is another huge battle. Conor Shanahan definitely not getting an easy road here to the top end, because he goes up against an on-form Ryan Caldwell. Caldwell and Shanahan starting their careers almost side by side in the amateurs here in Ireland. And now, after many successes and many podiums between both drivers, two families that get on very well behind the scenes, the Caldwells and the Shanahans, now they got to go head-to-head.
Let's not forget, though, Caldwell handed that gift from Terence Fury just when it looked like it was all but over for the young man. Fury spun out uncharacteristically, and now he sees himself in the grade 8 against Conor Shanahan. Shanahan spoke big words when he came up against Shea Rogers, backed them up. So going on recent form, it looks as though Shanahan should have the advantage going into this one. But has Caldwell learned from his previous woes?
Well, think of this. Caldwell hasn't finished outside the top 4 at the first 2 rounds. He's now got another shot at the top 4. That's a guy in consistent form. If he's to stay in the championship fight at all, he knows Shanahan, Jack rather, and Alan Hines have gone into the top 4. To stay in that championship fight, Caldwell has to make that top 4 as well. And the other thing is he's got Conor Shanahan, who's trying to climb back up the ranks in the championship after missing round 2 of the championship. So anything can happen. Two young guns on the line, two incredible machines, but the conditions not perfect. Who can manage this the best? We're about to find out as Caldwell leads in Shanahan as they go up over the hill, and a big flick into that first corner, and Shanahan very aggressive from the off here. He's on big angle.
He is, but holds it, Dave, holds it very well indeed, and he manages to stay in the fight here. Both drivers through that first section unscathed. Now, can they keep this going? Shanahan hunts for the rear quarter once again and stays in the fight. Caldwell, though, equal to the task, and he is doing a really strong job in that lead position now. Brings it onto the wall nicely, but just deviates from the line and comes off it ever so slightly as they take it to the wall. Shanahan still there, hunting down the door of the S15. They cross the line. Shanahan and Caldwell, two young guns in their prime, Dave, showing serious talent.
Very incredible. I mean, it's so horrible out there, and standing water and the aquaplane and everything, these guys still manage it. And you imagine how many inputs you've got to put into the steering and the throttle and everything throughout that run to just keep that car moving. And both Caldwell and Shanahan, looks like both cars very equally pace steady, so we're in for a good two set of runs here. And Shanahan doing a good job in the chase of staying close. Look at his hangs just on the perfect transition, mirroring that lead car, almost matching every single transition. And Caldwell not going super wide to the wall there, but does make up for it on the second wall. Very in the balance, I think, right now.
Yeah, and I think it shows now properly just how different the conditions are for the drivers in terms of the full wet track. They can deal with those conditions much better, and we're seeing a lot more consistent driving from the guys out on circuit as we switch them around. And Shanahan now takes up that lead position, and he'll be hoping to try and replicate what Caldwell was able to produce on the first half of the battle. A strong lead run and try and just gain some ground and stop Caldwell from getting that proximity. Can he just find some extra pace in that S15? And could he see himself into the final four?
I'm just going to take a moment here to talk about our start line marshal, Cian Droney. He has just hung Ryan Caldwell's exhaust back onto his car. He has just cleaned both windscreens of both cars and both side windows to make sure both guys can see out of the car, making sure that's safe for both drivers. As you can see, anything he's doing to one car, doing exactly the same to the other car, and making sure these two guys. Can we get a round of applause for our track marshals out on track today? Start line and all the guys around the track, keeping this show on the road. Incredible commitment from these guys. Not an easy job to keep your concentration in these conditions. And a round of applause to everybody here in Mondello Park, braving the conditions to support Irish drifting. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking around. It is a tough one out there, but we're going to see it to the finish, and I think we've got some fireworks in some wet conditions still to go as Shanahan now leads in Caldwell off the line, and Caldwell's got the pace here as he comes right up onto the back bumper of Shanahan.
Yeah, but Shanahan makes a huge weight transfer entry now. Can Caldwell claw it back in? Yes, he can. They close the gap. Caldwell washing a little bit wide, but staying in and sacrificing clip 4 now to try and get on the door of Shanahan. But look, he's a little bit ahead of Shanahan. Needs to rein in the aggression here as they get caught on the transition. A messy affair from both the drivers. As Caldwell tries to find something, Shanahan drops a wheel as he approaches the wall, but gets through unscathed, and they cross the line untidy, and I'd like to see a replay of that one,
I'll tell you,
Dave.
something that is a big factor here is when you initiate onto that first corner, we got to watch how much spray the lead car is firing up onto the windscreen of the chase car. Very difficult to see at that speed where you're going or what's happening. Shanahan has an issue coming out of Link ECU, and Caldwell, he's on a terrible line, so both making errors almost in the same area of the track there, getting home though unscathed. So let's see which way the judges go. It's for a space in the final four. Will it be Caldwell? Will it be Conor Shanahan? Who is going to get the win? I'm not so sure. It's a big decision in the championship. Slide him left for Shanahan, right for Caldwell. It's Conor Shanahan getting the win. Conor Shanahan gets the win and goes through to the final four. Wow. Go back to the judges quickly, guys. It's very tough out there and a very difficult decision nearly every run now with mistakes being made.
Yeah, conditions are definitely not making for easier judge battles, Dave. That is one thing that is for sure. Look, it kind of comes back down there. Like, I mean, the first run, Caldwell gives a fairly decent lead line despite the conditions, but Conor gives an excellent chase. We swap the roles back around. Conor comes in here very, very aggressively. Caldwell is not able to maintain the proximity that Conor had in the first run. As we come around the bottom corner here, Ryan unfortunately is on a very, very poor line. He's on a very, very inside line, and he hasn't really left enough room for Conor to transition. Now Conor does have a slight straight, and Ryan is trying to pull himself back to allow him to transition, but unfortunately it's a scrappy enough run, like, you know, so Conor takes the win overall.
Well, there you go. Conor Shanahan getting the win. Two Shanahans into the top four, and they're joined by Paul Conlon Conlon and Alan Hines. Those are the 4 drivers remaining at this time. Jack Shanahan will head off with Paul Conlon, and that's what's coming up next. Now, Paul Conlon has been the wild card all weekend. He's taken down so many people at this stage, and he's done it probably being the most wild driver on the grid. So he is not to be counted out here.
No, certainly not. And, you know, you turn back to round 1 at the start of this campaign, and Paul Conlon spoke about how he was here to no longer make up the numbers, to remind people that he can contend at this level, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's in a Final 4. Can he take down Jack Shanahan? He loses a little bit of ground off the start line, though, as Shanahan just bursts through the gears and down that straight. Shanahan with a huge gap opened up through the first 2 clips. Can he keep this going, or will Conlon find some pace in that S15?
I think that inactive chase is going to be an issue again for Conlon here. He's got to get to that second last clipping zone before Shanahan gets across the line. If Shanahan is on that correct qualifying line, Conlon is in trouble here. And Jack Shanahan goes into that last corner. Check this out. As he goes across the last finish line, Conlon will have to have passed the wall. And it's going to be very, very, very close. Oh, and Conlon might just have made it again.
By a nose.
It's not going to make any difference to the score. You're probably looking at 8-2 or 9-1 to Jack Shanahan there, but just to not cause a 10-0. But it all started on the run-up. Conlon sort of coming up that crest of the hill, just couldn't find any grip.
I can't let this replay pass without commenting on Jack Shanahan. I mean, it doesn't seem to be phasing him one bit, the conditions out there. Wet or dry, he has this dialed in. You can watch the tracks that he leaves in the wet. Perfect all the way through the course. Look at that. Incredible from him. Pinpoint accuracy onto the wall. Splashes through the puddles. No problem for Jack Shanahan. Wet or dry, he's the guy.
And I want to have to take a little moment to talk about the next round coming up in August, which is the Irish Motor Festival, joined by the Drift Games Extreme in Punchestown. Big announcement coming out about that event in the next week. Something that's really going to excite everyone who thought about Punchestown back in the day and how crazy it was. Well, we've got a big announcement about that event, something that you wouldn't probably believe coming out this week about the track layout at that track. And I also will remind you.
Surely you haven't had a building knocked so that we can do the old layout.
We did, yeah. We knocked 3 buildings. No, we've got something special planned for that one. And just to let you know, it's going to have a little join. We're going to have Mr. McKeever coming back for that one, and Kevin Quinn. So the whole grid back for the last 2 rounds of the season, and a brand new track. Yeah, and the grandstand there actually filling out very fast at the moment, and tickets are on sale now. Go on to the driftgames.live website. You can grab a grandstand ticket and go to irishmotorfestival.com to grab the tickets. Here we go.
We got the second half of this one. Conlon up against it. Shanahan's been flawless. What can Conlon do? Low gap through the first section. And look at this. Shanahan able to deal with it. Dials on the angle and able to maintain that door to door. No problem for Shanahan as he comes hunting for the S15 of Conlon. Conlon keeping on that wide line, but it's just too little too late as he slows up now, and Shanahan just battling to try and keep that car on angle in the chase position, dealing with the slower car in front, but expertly dealing with it as Conlon struggles. Shanahan side by side, and you know what, Dave, this one is pretty clear cut for me over the 2 runs. Shanahan looking like a real contender to take the win this weekend.
He's unstoppable at the moment, to be honest, and Jack Shanahan having far more pace. He almost came to a stop behind Conlon at one point. You could see the grip difference in both cars, where Conlon almost was still spinning wheels but going nowhere, and Shanahan almost stopping. But let's see which way the judges go on this one. It looks like a fairly obvious decision, in my opinion, but at the same time, let's see what way it goes. Thumbs up from both drivers. Let's see, sliding left for Paul Conlon, right for Jack Shanahan's for a spot in the final. And there you have it, Shanahan's going to the final. Jack Shanahan gets the win. 2 finals in a row for him, 1 in Dunleary and now here at round 3 at Retromania. He gets out of the car, goes over to congratulate Paul Conlon. It's going to be Shanahan on the podium anyway, guaranteed. And Paul Conlon, he'll have to play off for 3rd and 4th, and as I said, he'll still have another chance. So Nathan is down on track. Nathan, you're with Jack Shanahan. He's into his 2nd final in a row. How's he feeling?
I certainly am down here with Jack Shanahan. Jack, incredible stuff for them in these wet conditions. You just made it through the Final 4. How are you feeling?
Oh man, I'm buzzed. Absolutely buzzed. I thought the weather would be an absolute downer, but you know what? It's the same fun we're having, and that's a fact. We're just pushing hard and having a laugh.
Now there's a chance you could come up correct against Connor here. What's the deal going to be if that's the case?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if he beat Ryan or not, but...
Is it, what happened? We were in the car, I'm not too sure either. Who knows? It's too wet for these.
Connor's in.
That's what I thought. How does that fit? How does that sound to you?
I don't really care. Bring it on.
And what happens? I mean, he's itching for a win. If it comes to it, brothers go out of the window for a second, and it's just two men in two cars, and one person's got to win. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. But look, there's 2 trophies coming home to Killavullen if that's the case. So all I know is that I don't give a shite about putting marks on his car because I have to fix them, right? So I'll be pushing hard.
Amazing. That's Jack. We'll see you in a little bit. Jack Shanahan, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you guys.
Well, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but Alan Hines might have a big statement to make there, as he is still going to go up now next against Conor Shanahan. So Shanahan, all Shanahan final, and it's so stacked now because Alan Hines will have to go to the final and has to win the final to stay top of the championship going into the last 2 rounds. So if there's ever been a question asked of Alan Hines in the wet today, it's going to be asked. Yes, Jack Shanahan alluded to it. They're still having a lot of fun out there. It's still very unpredictable. But if Alan Hines can beat Conor Shanahan, he could eliminate a trophy going back to Killavullen tonight if he's going to go in 3rd and 4th place playoff, or we'll have an all Shannon final. So we'll either have 2 brothers in the final or the 2 guys top of the championship 1 point apart in the final. That is what's going to happen today. So irregardless of the weather and irregardless of how much difficult that's made it, it's going to be very, very interesting. So we're going to take a small break just to wipe down some of our cameras here and get some wet gear on some of our marshals, and we are back in just a few moments' time with the finals here at DGX Round 3. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Jack Shanahan and I drive with Link. Their range of accessories are a necessity for any car enthusiast. Boost control solenoids, pressure sensors, map sensors are must-haves in drift cars. Check out their range at www.linkecu.com.
Well, here we are in Mondello Park. The weather is not ideal. However, we want to give a big thank you to all of you guys in the grandstand and around the banks here in Mondello Park. Give yourselves a big round of applause for sticking with us today. We still got a couple of battles to go in there for the trophies. But first, we need to see who's going to that final. Will it be Conor Shanahan or Alan Hines? We mentioned Shanahan wins. He meets his brother in the final. If Alan Hines wins, he goes up against Jack Shanahan in the final. Those 2 guys are 1 and 2 and 1 point apart in the championship. Couldn't be more exciting. And it couldn't be more treacherous out there, so anything can happen. Hines will be in the chase in this situation. He did not qualify as high as he usually does. He will be chasing Conor Shanahan. They're off the line, and look at this, Hines taking a jump off the line here, right behind Conor Shanahan to try and stay with him on this initiation. Conor Shanahan's got a lot of grip in that S15 here in the wet, and Alan Hines now starts to cut the corner a little bit to stay with Shanahan. A lot of standing water out there, a lot to deal with, and Shanahan transitions back to the outside of Link ECU corner. Now Hines starts to make the move, getting in nice, close and personal with Conor Shanahan as he transitions perfectly, but a little straight from Hines, a little wobble as they come through that section. Now Hines has got to make the move here. He's got to get right onto the door, and he does exactly that. They're splashing through the puddles, onto the wall, onto the door, contact, and across the line. These boys not backing down regardless of the weather. Impressive stuff.
No chance to back down at this stage of the competition. You got to give it absolutely everything, and it looked as though Shanahan was going to just run away from Hines here as he just leapt forward through that first corner, but Hines just maintains his composure, keeps his cool, and just finds that line to get himself onto the door of Shanahan as they exit Link ECU. And just almost gets caught here. You can just see very small little bump, a tiny straighten from Alan Hines, but just gets it working again. And jumps back into the pocket, and he stays there, Dave. Look at this through the final sections. And you know what? There are a few little mistakes from Alan Hines, but he lets Shanahan know that he is there and still alive in this battle.
Well, to be honest with you, from my perspective, it seems to me that Conor Shanahan has a little bit more grip dialed into that car, and Alan Hines had to really struggle to stay with him. And then you put too much grip in the car, it starts to actually straighten up a little bit in the chase, because the lead is sometimes can be quite wishy-washy. So at the moment, I think this one's still in the balance. There was a lot of proximity towards the end of the run from Alan Hines. He's got his points back in there. Maybe not an advantage, but he's definitely not got a disadvantage. And now Conor Shanahan in the chase has got to push it, got to put it to the door if he wants to final with his brother, and he wants to put Alan Hines back down the order a little bit, which he could help out his brother Jack Shanahan to do. He's got to take him down here.
Yeah, well, we already know how difficult it is just to win a round of the Drift Games Extreme Class, but to win a second one and back it up and prove that you have the stuff to do it on a continuous basis is even more difficult. And Alan Hines may have the opportunity to do that here this weekend, but he is going to have to work so hard for it. He's only going to have to overcome not one, but two Shanahans. He's going to have to overcome the most treacherous conditions. Here we go, the second half of this one. One of these boys is going into the final. Who's it going to be? Can Shanahan keep with Hines side by side as they just throw caution to the wind and throw those cars on big angle into that first corner, and they just float out to that third clipping zone as Hines now just avoids letting Shanahan anywhere near the door of that S14, but Shanahan's now coming hunting for it. They make contact bumper to bumper on transition, but Shanahan just not able to match that final dive that Hines had. Proximity through the final sections from Shanahan, but is it enough, Dave?
I'm not sure. It's very, very close. Shanahan definitely has far more proximity on the first half of the course, and not as much as Hines on the second, so that balances it off a little bit. Some mistakes either or, and having a little bit of fun out there. Shanahan trying to avoid Alan Hines' bumper, which he knocked off on the transition, and the judges will have to make a call here of who is going to go through to the final of. And it is a straight decision from the judges. They have one in. Is it Hines? Is it Shanahan? Who is going to the final? It's going to be Conor Shanahan. Yes, all the judges go to Conor Shanahan. He gets the win. It's going to be Jack Shanahan versus Conor Shanahan in the final here at round 3. Hines will try and get that last step on the podium. He'll have to go up against Conlon. Nathan is down on the track. Nathan, it's not nice down there, but there's some good driving going down. How are they feeling?
Kamish, Powerhead, I don't know about you guys, but I am excited and pumped. We're going to see the two brothers in the final. Conor, you've gone up against Hines there. You've defeated him. You know what this means, don't you? Jack, Conor, brother versus brother, a Shanahan finale live in Mondello Park. The people are going to go wild for this. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm absolutely pumped. I've never had so much fun driving in the rain. It's like dancing in the rain. Yeah, it's time for the Shanahans to show what we're made of and put on a show in the rain. But look, it's going to be quite difficult against Jack, and I don't care what way it goes. We're both first or second, no matter what way. Shanahans are on top. We rock.
There it is, people. What do you think of that? It could be the end of the world, and it wouldn't dampen the spirits of what's going to be an unbelievable final here. Come rain or shine, DGX Round 3 is going to give you a final to remember. Back to you guys.
I think Nathan Black has gone crazy. He's been down in the rain for that long. I think all the water has seeped into his head and he's gone mental. But guys, give him a round of applause, keeping it pumped up on track. And we have got an all Shanahan final, and we've got Hines versus Conlon, and now this is real pressure for Hines. And he definitely has to take it as far. Well, I think from my perspective, Hines has to win that battle to stay in the mix.
Look, I think, Dave, either way, he's going to be, what, maybe 9 points behind if he finished out in 4th position. He's not going to be... He's not going to be out of it with 2 rounds to go, but certainly he'll want to minimize that gap as much as possible. Going home on 3rd step of the podium would still be a big result here this weekend.
Absolutely, and we've 2 final battles that are really stacked up. You've got Conlon, who hasn't been on a podium in a very long time in Irish drifting, got a chance against Alan Hines, and Alan Hines, you know, after a little blip in the radar at round 2, now back trying to get onto that podium again here at round 3, keeping himself in the fight. So that's going to be a really interesting 3rd and 4th place battle, and we've got that all shot Shanahan final, which I don't think anyone here can avoid, and both cars looking like they're the fastest two cars out there. Definitely going to crash into each other quite a few times. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're back in a few moments' time. We're just going to take a breather, shake off some of the water, and we're back with the last two battles of the day in a few moments' time. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Bagsy, and I drive Link.
I'm Connor Shanahan and I drive Link.
Hi, I'm Dwayne McKeever. I'm Ahmed Daham.
Jack Shanahan here, and I drive Link.
We all love tire shredding, high horsepower drift machinery. They're pushed to their limits at every single Drift Games event. But making sure these vehicles have the highest octane fuel possible is very important. And the power gains and reliability provided by race fuel ensure each driver only has to worry about their personal performance. With unsurpassed innovations and years of experience, it's easy to see why most tuners, engine builders, and professional drifters choose Sunoco over all other racing fuels combined. You want to push your car to the limits? Make sure you choose Sunoco Race Fuel.
We have got two battles left. Guys, if you're in the grandstand, give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you for coming out this weekend and supporting Irish Drifting. You guys have been incredible. And we want to get everyone in the grandstand to give a big round of applause to everybody around the bank who's been really, really well out there. Give them a big round of applause. They've had a rough day out there watching the drifting. Give them a big round of applause. All the fans around the bank. Can we get a big round of applause for all of our marshals on track who've been out there all day since 9 o'clock this morning? Give them a big shout. And also to all of our media and everybody else on the track. It's been a tough day. We've got through it. We've got two battles left. I'm telling you, they're going to heat things up here. Very, very entertaining stuff. Big announcements coming this week about the final two rounds of the championship. The first being in Punchestown at the Irish Motor Festival. There's only 900 seats in the grandstand. A lot of them sold already. It's going to be a cracker of a weekend in August. You've got rallying there. You've got show cars there. You've got supercars there. You've got manufacturers there, trade stands, everything at the Irish Motor Festival. Go on to irishmotorfestival.com. Grab your tickets before they're gone. There's not a lot of grandstand tickets left. And I'm going to reveal during the week that we have a very special track planned. One of the scariest tracks I think we've ever planned for an event, and that is coming up in Punchestown. We'll keep you posted on the Drift Games social media network, so you can, you guys can keep up with it. And also, if you're checking out the YouTube channel, we've got a couple of reveals coming there in the next couple of weeks as well. So thank you guys for watching and liking and following and all that kind of stuff. We really, really appreciate it. And right now, we've got a battle on for third place on the podium. It's going to be Paul Conlon versus Alan Hines. Alan Hines with the pressure of trying to stay in the championship fight, and Paul Conlon with not a lot of pressure, but a man that hasn't taken home a trophy in quite some time here in Irish Drifting. Not in my memory. I think he's probably 8 to 9, maybe 10 years from a trophy. Could he get one today in these conditions? Conlon, 42 years of age, the most experienced driver on the grid, going up against the man currently leading the championship, the young gun, Alan Hines.
Would this be the oldest ever podium finisher in Irish drifting history if he was to take home a trophy here this weekend?
I don't know if he'd be delighted with us announcing that, but it is great to see someone that's founded the sport so many years ago and done all the Top Gear stuff and done all those crazy things, the steer from the rear. He started doing donuts, and that was all the rage for a while, then professional drifting, and he stayed relevant in the sport for that amount of time. And here we go. Alan Hines, Paul Conlon, here we go. Alan Hines in the lead, Paul Conlon in the chase as they come up over the hill. Hines Getting a bit of a gap here. Colin just doesn't have the pace on the run-ins.
No, certainly not, but he has been able to find that proximity through the latter stages of the circuit, but he's got a big mountain to climb here as Alan Hines puts foot to floor, gets on that wide line and staying on it. Conlon not deviating from the line to try and catch up. Will we see another photo finish here? Hines just comes off that line to try and gain a little bit more proximity or ground and open up that gap even further, takes it to the wall. Conlon, he's going to be up instead once again, and does he get to that clipping zone, Dave, before Hines crosses the line?
I'm not so sure.
He's riding his luck for sure here.
I'm not so sure. I'll have to check this out on the replay, but I don't know if Conlon makes it to that second last clipping zone as Hines crosses the line. That would be an inactive chase, and therefore a 10-0 to Alan Hines. And Conlon just doesn't have any. It's the run-up. It's not even through the track. He's not so bad. He kind of keeps a consistent pace, but that run-up over the hill, it's like it's just spinning wheels, and he's got a lot of horsepower in that car. Guys at Quinn's M Sport have done a great job on it. Obviously, the Link ECU working correctly under the bar. I'd said running everything under the bonnet correctly, but maybe too much power. Maybe just can't get it. But watch this. Hines goes to the finish line, and watch as Hines hits that final line. Oh, it's very close whether Conlon gets there or not. Judges will make the final call on that one, but it's definitely a disadvantage. Hines now has to be clever here. He doesn't have to do anything sensational, and he will take third step on the podium, and then we will go to that all Shanahan, Jack and Connor final. Let's see what happens. It's going to be an interesting one. And Conlon, you can see having a word with Keen Droney on the start line, who's available to wash windows all week, actually, is what he's saying now. He's starting up a new company. He's washed so many windscreens today. He said he's opening his own valet company on Tuesday, and he's going to start doing it for everybody. But it's a great way to see our marshals working with the drivers to try and make sure they've got that maximum performance and they can see out of those cars. And, you know, it is a very sketchy thing to be doing, throwing in over a blind hill with this much rain, this much spray, and everything else.
So, one more run for these guys, Dave, and we will potentially have a third position on the podium decided. But will Conlon find something special now in the second half of this one? Can he find some pace off the line? Can he find some magic in this S15? Or will it be Alan Hines going to a second podium of the championship? Bit of a waiver from Alan Hines, but he gets straight back into it now, and no problems with him keeping with the lead car as he looks to close the gap into Link ECU. Throws big angle at it as he goes door to door now. Nice line from Alan Hines, but doesn't match the angle of Paul Conlon. Conlon throws huge angle at it, but cannot find any pace in that S15 to try and get ahead of Alan Hines, who just tucks in beside, and you know what, doing a really strong job holding his composure, holding his nerve, and crossing the line side by side with Conlon.
Yeah, pushing Conlon across the line at the end of that battle, and I think that one might be decided by everyone around here. I don't think it's going to take a huge amount of deliberation from the judges that who's going to take third step on the podium. But Paul Conlon, what a finish, top 4. He woke up this morning and said, you know what, I don't really care, I just want to have some fun out there. But if he's coming home with a top 4, that shows that he's still got it. He's still got it at 42 years of age. He's still one of the best in the country, and we will wait for the judges' decision to be official of who is going to take third step on the podium. Slide him left for Conlon, right for Hines. Is it an obvious one like we all think? Does he stay in that championship hunt? And there you have it. Alan Hines takes third place on the podium. Paul Conlon takes fourth position. And Alan Hines will stay in the fight, not losing a huge amount of ground, taking third place on the podium. Nathan, you're down on trackside. How is Alan Hines feeling? He's taken third step, not the perfect result, but in these conditions, you got to take that one.
Alan, maybe a silver lining there. Didn't make your way to the final, but fantastic effort. You've made third place against Paul Conlon there. How are you feeling now? I don't know the exact numbers, but it's got to leave things pretty tight at the top.
Yeah, I don't know where Jack has ended up. Is he in the final, is he?
Yeah. Jack has ended up in the final. You might have heard against Connor, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Jack has a small bit of a lead over us now. Maybe, I don't know, like 9 points or something like that if he wins it. So, look, it's still all open. This weekend did not go our way, and we still managed to pull through, and that's the main thing as a team. We did that. So I'm super proud of my team. Thank you guys. They're in the grandstand and in the pits. They did an awesome job. And yeah, look, another trophy in the cabinet. Can't really complain. So awesome weekend, despite the troubles yesterday, but really, really happy, really proud.
Alan, congratulations. Still all to play for. Well done on third. It's a pleasure, and we'll see you in Punchestown, baby. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Nathan. Great to get the reactions from the drivers there. Alan Hines, he said it wasn't his weekend. It didn't go the way. Well, taking third step on a weekend when it didn't go your way ain't a bad way to stay in the fight. 9 points, depending on how Jack Shanahan finishes, because, you know, he's got to go up against his own brother. So Connor Shanahan could stop Jack Shannon getting more of a lead here.
Yeah, and what's huge here is that for the second time this season, we have an opportunity for a brand new winner. Is this the time for Conor Shannon to announce himself on the Irish scene?
Well, we spoke about it earlier. Conor Shannon has not won a professional round of Irish drifting yet. He's won in the UK, he's won in Europe. Jack Shannon has won plenty, but there's a lot at stake here because Jack Shannon is now the leader of the championship. Conor Shannon taking him out here in the final would actually shorten the gap between Alan Hines and Jack Shannon. So a lot to play for here.
Yes, a lot to play for, but don't think for 1 second that Jack Shannon will be handing anything here to Conor, because you know what? He's had a rough couple of years and he is back on it, back feeling like he is the man to beat, and he won't hand anything to his brother. Nothing was ever handed to him. He's had to go out and work for every last trophy, every last podium, every last finish that he's ever made, and now he's back behind the wheel of a car that he feels comfortable with.
And the thing about it is now, if Jack Shannon has built both of these cars, so if he crashes them into it, he's got to fix 2 cars at the end of the accident. But I think that might actually make it less of a relief for both of these guys. They're going to throw it caution to the wind. Shanahan versus Shanahan. Jack Shannon to lead in Conor Shannon. This one's for the bragging rights in the van on the way home. Here we go. And look at Conor Shannon right with Jack Shannon on initiation here.
Yes, side by side through that first corner, and almost in unison as they just take it nice and wide to clip 3. 2 boys in their prime, doing what they love to do best. They'd not rather fight anybody else other than each other in the finals, and they are going at it, hammer and tongs. Here comes Conor Shannon all over Jack as Jack throws it to the wall. One last ditch attempt from Conor as he tries to stake a claim in this final, his first ever win on an Irish extreme class if he could overcome his brother, but Jack doing a strong job. Conor right there with it. This one's going to go to the second half of this one, Dave.
Absolutely. Grandstand as they pass in front of you. Make some noise for these 2 kids out on track. Rain, shine, snow. They're putting on a show for you guys. And what a display from Conor Shanahan. You know, at 16 years of age, he's gone out there and put in one of the best chase runs of the day against his brother. He was in the fight right from the off. He's left a lot out there. Definite advantage to Conor Shanahan after the first run. And Jack Shanahan is now going to have to go to another place. He's going to have to go to another level. It's the most he's been pushed around all day. He's looked quite comfortable all the way through the competition. And now he's got to do something special to match this run. Incredible stuff from these 2 brothers, and making the Irish drift scene very proud across in Europe and everywhere else. These guys representing and flying that Irish flag. Sometimes it's forgotten that this small country is absolutely dominating this sport across the world. James Dean, 2nd place in Formula D last night, Irish flag on the podium. 3 Irish drivers in the top 3 in the European Championship, and now 2 brothers going head to head in the Irish National Championship. That's what it's all about. And here we go, we're having a word to say that Jack Shanahan's wipers have failed on the front of his car at the moment. He has got no wipers on the front of the car. You can see Keane Droney.
He is going to be in the chase position as well, and you spoke earlier about the spray that these guys face going through that first corner. This could be catastrophic.
To quote from Dodgeball, he will not be able to see very well, Cotton, and that is what's going to happen as they come into that first corner, because Jack Shannon's going to get a lot of spray from the back of Conor Shannon, and you can see Keane Droney. We can't tape him to the front of the car and let him operate the wipers.
I bet if you let him, he would sit there, though.
And he probably would. Here we go, last run of the day.
Shannon to lead in. Shannon, who's going to take a top step? Who's going to go second? Will Conor Shannon take his first win in the Extreme Championship? Jack is all over the rear bumper of the S15 in that GD86 as he brings everything to the fight. Wheel to wheel as they slide out to clip 3. Jack with a huge straighten. Possibly visibility issues, but he gets right back into it. They're nose on nose, wheel on wheel.
Contact between both drivers as they now transition for the final time to that. Well, look at the transition from Jack Shanahan, but he strains a little bit in it. Will Conor finally get his first ever win in Irish pro drifting?
Is this the moment for Conor Shanahan? Hand out the window, Mondello Park, raise the roof for the Shanahans.
Well, I mean, what a day it's been. Upsets. I mean, it's been all over the place, from dry to wet, up and down, emotional moments. What a finale. And you know what? It's not the time because it's such a wet day, but can you guys in the grandstand get on your feet and give these 2 kids a massive round of applause for an incredible display? Give it up for Conor Shanahan and Jack Shanahan. So it looks like we may have a decision, and that means we can invite you guys down trackside to where we'll announce the winner. You guys can make your way down, and we will announce the trophies, get the podiums out there, come down, congratulate all those drivers. Eddie, I'm heading with the results, and I will see you at the podium.
Yes, Dave, what a day it has been, and the podium in just a few moments' time. We hand down to Nathan Black, who's down with our two finalists, Jack and Connor Shanahan.
What? Are we on? Powerhead, have you handed to me? We are on. Thank you, Powerhead. Great work today, my compadre. Amazing stuff there. Crowd, what did you think of that? The Shanahan finale, we're going to find out. We don't know. It was too close to call for hours. I got hairspray in my eyes. The guys are pulling up. A decision has been made as the crowd made their way down onto the track. It's time to give away some awards. I wouldn't like to be the one calling it, but let's try and have a chat with both brothers. Chaps, gotta get out of here, you little rascal. How about that? You can let him come down. You talk to me first, Jack. How was that? How do you feel going up against your brother live in the final here in the rain? What a day.
Yeah, that was enjoyable, definitely. I pushed a little bit too hard, but my wiper stopped working on my lead run halfway around, and it was the scariest initiation I've ever done in my life, because I stayed alongside him for as long as I could so I could know where he was, and then all of a sudden I had to drop behind because they're the rules, and then I couldn't see a thing. So I couldn't see until I got to about clip 3, and then I think I hit him and stuff, so I don't know. I mean, it was very sloppy by me, but look, I pushed hard and had a laugh.
Fun though, right? That's got to be fun.
Definitely, definitely.
Connor, what is it to say? The pressure was arguably on you. Just done this deal with the big boys. You've headed this way. You make your way into the final. A lot of eyes were on you. Gone up against Jack. How are you feeling?
Yeah, you know what, honestly, Nathan, I don't care what the decision is for the final. I absolutely love driving with Jack. You know, there's no games, and I think we put on a good show in the rain, the best we could. The conditions obviously didn't suit, but yeah, look, I'm super happy to be here with the weekend we had, problems with the cars, and I just want to say a massive thanks to my team. They are the best out there. They didn't give up all weekend and just kept doing what I told them to do, and yeah, we made it work. We're here in the final, and let's see who takes the win.
Listen, I'd like to, if I may, congratulate and thank you on behalf of everybody here, all the people, all the crowd, and everybody at home for an incredible final. Both Shanahan brothers. I don't know who's going to win, but give it up for the both of them as we hand on over to the commish, who's going to talk us to the end of the day. Thank you very much. Let's find out who's going home with the gold.
What an incredible day, guys. Give yourselves a big round of applause for sticking out the conditions, guys. It's what Irish drifting is all about, staying together. And I can't announce, no surprise, and still in the championship fight. Give it up for a third. One, two. There we go. Even our microphones are giving up here in the race. So, it's time to decide a winner. Is it Jack? Is it Connor? Who is going to take the win here at round 3 of the Drift Games Extreme? It's Shanahan! I'm sorry. All right. I couldn't avoid it. Taking second position on the podium. Will you please give it up for Jack Shanahan? That means your winner of round 3 of the Link ECU Drift Games Extreme is Connor Shanahan! What an incredible way to finish this one. Nathan, what an event.
Talk about that. The rain was never going to dampen this. We're going to try and get in for a quick chat and ask him how it feels. Connor, we got to ask you, how does it feel to be up here with Heinz and your brother on the top of the podium? Give us your final words before we call it a wrap here.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. You had your time. Talk to us.
This event has been difficult. The whole year has been difficult, but you know what? We're back on top, and I'm so happy. Thank you guys so much for the support. See you guys at round 4.
You heard it. There it is as the continuation of celebrations go on here. Mama Shanahan's coming in. We want to thank you all again for joining us. Don't forget to get your tickets. Round 4, Punchestown in a couple of weeks. Until then, I'm going to try and grab a glass of bubbly, and we'll see you in a few weeks from everybody here at the Link ECU Drift Games Extreme.